Good morning and welcome back to Planner Craft. I'm Natalie and today we're going to be doing a bit of colouring. Excuse me one moment, just while I make my computer go quiet. What it should do. It's not exactly listening to me at the minute. There we go. Okay. So, is anybody else having one of those mornings? Yeah, Amazon were supposed to be coming today. It came literally just as I was about to go live. Fantastic. So, apologies for a slightly delayed start. Today we're going to be doing the Toadstool Garden from Chocolate Baroque, and I've already stamped my image onto some A6 smooth cardstock. So that's 300 GSM if you want to replicate this project. So, you'll have seen on the Facebook group that I put up a post saying if you all start an album each and pop up anything that relates to any of the classes that we do, then we will see who kind of lights the creative inspiration for the month, and there will be a little gift winging its way. So what I want you to do for today is just imagine that this is stamped in a nice light brown ink. So I've done it in black so that you can actually see the image on stream, but what you really want to do is use a light brown or a chocolate ink for this one, and hopefully you can see we have a nice detailed image that we're going to be working with. Don't worry if you've got little bits of lines missing, because we're going to be putting all of those details back in with our coloured pencils. So I have my trusty sharpener to one side. Hi Mom, hi Deb. Some miler to stop my fingers getting on my work too much. And I was wearing my gloves until Amazon came. Fantastic. So they're now in the wash. And I have a 72 pack of Arteza pencils. Now I will try and get these on to shop as much as possible, but I still need space to work as well. So I do apologise if you can't see every colour that I'm going to have to choose from, but I'm going to work through basically a colour section at a time so that you can get used to the technique that I'm using. So what I usually do is I start with something that is like a focal point so that we can kind of really spend the time on that. As we go out from that focal point, the amount of detail and work that we're going to do is going to get less and less, so that we make that focal point kind of shine. So in this case I'm going to start work with my toadstools right in the middle here, and we're going to start work with our main one, which is this top section. And then what we want to do is we want to pull out a few colours. So I'm going to go for a dark orange, a kind of pillar box red, and then you want to go for something that is going to be a shaded colour. So by that I mean that I'm going to go for a cooler red, or if you're going to go for really high contrast, you could almost go to a warm purple. Okay, so with those done, I'm going to move those over slightly so I can get this more in the centre of the shot and hopefully block out that light for you. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my lightest colour first, and when we're colouring, what we want to avoid is going at it like you are better off to do lots of light layers of colour, because basically your card has a tooth, and each time your pencil goes over, that tooth is going to pick up some of that pigment. And if we go at it really heavy, like we're going to, try and dig to Australia with our pencil, all you're going to succeed in doing is flattening that tooth, which means that you're not going to get that nice depth of colour, because there isn't going to be anything to hold it on. So you want to go nice and light, lots of layers, and just take your time. So we've got about an hour, so we can get most of this image done. Now I am going to be putting this into a square journal, so I'm probably going to be chopping off the end pieces, but we'll see how we go. So I'm just going to rotate my work as well. So basically, if you're right-handed, you're going to find it easier to tilt it slightly this way. If you're left-handed, you're going to find it easier to tilt it that way. As I'm right-handed, I'm going to go that way. You're going to want to put your mylar wherever you're not colouring, and so that it's resting under your hand. And we're going to start with a nice light shade, and with our warm colour we want to focus on this middle part here where the light would hit. Now if you want to make it shiny, you're going to miss out a section, but if you want to make it matte, you're going to go straight over the top, so it's up to you. So I'm going to start with a nice light pressure. And we're just going to go down that centre section. The other reason to go nice and light, so that you build up your layers, is that if you do manage to go outside the lines, it's going to be easier for you to clean it up, and it's going to be less noticeable anyway. So if you're going to put in a highlight, I'm thinking around about there for me. I'm going to miss that out and just softly blend that edge so that it's not a harsh line. Unless you really want to make it glossy. If you want to go really super duper glossy, you can do a nice hard line, but I'm going to blend this colour out on this edge here. And along this edge here. And there we go. So we've got our first bit of colour in. So if I zoom in just slightly, you can see, there we go. So I've missed the spots, but we've got a bit blending down here, so that we're ready for when our next colour goes on to actually blend that back. So let's lift that back up. There we go. So now we're going to go to our pillar box red, which is our middle red, and we can start to do our shading. So again, we're going to keep it nice and light. Go over the bit that you've kind of faded out, that warm orange. And use the same technique, so we're going to blend out that colour. And we're going to go round in kind of a U shape. I'm going to blend it out on these outer corners. And what I'm doing is like really long stretched oval with my pencil, so it's like that. Now with your pencils, it's better to work with a slightly sharp pencil rather than a blunt one. So I'm going to start to sharpen my pencils as I go. But for this first layer, it's not going to matter too much, because I want to just keep it nice and smooth, nice and light. I'm going to slowly build it up. So now we're going to start getting a little bit heavier towards this centre section. And blend it out. So now you got some decisions to make. Where are the kind of lumps and bumps of your mushroom? Morning, Carol. So we can start to add in a bit of stronger colour just here to kind of insinuate that there's a little bit of a dip just there along that edge. So don't worry about those spots at the minute, because we can come back and do those after. You're just concentrating on those reds. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the cooler red. And I hope you can see that one, you should be able to on stream. Carol's wishing you, or saying that it's much better to see you feeling better and back home. And thank you to everyone who messaged me over the past few days. See how Mum is and if she's on the mend. She's got to chill and relax, so hence I'm doing colouring today. So we're going to bring that cooler red back through that area that we've just done that stronger shading in. Along that edge. Now, if we've got our highlight kind of coming on here, so what you don't want to do is go, oh, there's some white space there, and let's colour that in. Just going to miss that. But I'm going to just colour in this tip here and make sure that we therefore do a little bit more of that colour on that cooler red just this other side of the spot, otherwise it can look like it's like an add-on bit rather than it blending nicely. Now that we've got that far, we can sharpen our pencils. Hi Linda, sorry to hear that your internet's playing up. Okay, so now we're going to go back over and we're going to start building up those layers. Hello, mister. So we're going back to our deep orange first. Just a bit lighter around this edge here, so that we're keeping that lightness just on that top edge and that blending. And I'm going to do a little bit more to the bottom edge here, just because we're saying that actually that's going to go back onto this same plane as this bit, so I want to put a little bit of that orange back in, like so. So I'm then going to go to my pillar box red, and we're going to go over our cool red that we did earlier and into the deep orange that we've just done, so that we kind of bridge the two. a little bit on the end bit there. And we're going to do the same down this section here. But on this side we can start to get a little bit stronger because our light's going to be hitting more or less this way. So while it's going to pick up a little bit of a highlight over here, most of this side is going to be darker than this side. And down right into this corner, like so. Now we can go to our cool red and we're going to tidy up those edges. So I'm going to get right in by these dots. And just try and take away like the little halo that you tend to get around there. And then it'll start to make your little dots look like they actually come out 3D. And just a little bit round there as well. Around this one. And then kind of join up between the dots. So by picking out those 3 shades, we can play with the colour and it's going to give you more of a realistic finish to your artwork. So I'm just going back to my pillar box red. Just to finish that blending off. Okay, so now we're ready to move on to the next section of red. So you could choose to do your other toadstools that are slightly different shaped, or we could hop across the flower. So I think in this case I'm going to hop across the flower, and wherever you use a colour, you want to try and use it in 3 places to kind of give you that consistent image. So I'm going to start back at my deep orange again. Just move it like, there you go. And I'm going to start by marking in the shading quite lightly to start with. So by doing this, you're going to help your eye kind of get used to the shape, and also know where your layers are. Just tidy up around the edge as well, so that you don't get any sort of white gaps at the bottom, because that's where your strong colour is going to be, down that section. And we're going to do inside petals 2. So again, the shading is going to be where it goes in towards that base. Now with this one here, we've got kind of a kink, so that your dark section's actually not going to quite be at the base of that petal. It's going to be slightly in a bit, so that it feels like it's got a lip to it. And again, this one's going to go right down inside there. I might say that there's a little bit just on that petal there. And this bit here, we're going to have that going into shade. That is shaded, that bit. That bit does, but it actually tucks behind the toadstool. And this one's part of the same flower. And again, there's a little bit of a curl up of the petal there, so we can colour that one in a bit darker. And all these little bits of shading are what's going to help you when you come to know where you've got to colour next. Now, if we look down the left hand side of our toadstool, we can see that there's a continuation of this petal here. So I'm just going to pop a little bit of shadow just there on that edge, because our light is coming down from here, so there would be a little bit anyway. And it's going to help me remember that that bit needs to be coloured too. So if I lift that up so you can see, you've got a little just there. So when I'm colouring flowers, what I tend to do, rather than going through the kind of motions of doing it all in one go, is I'll actually take it petal by petal. And I'll start off with my coolest colour, because I know that is going to form a nice solid line on the inside edge there, like so. Again, I'm not pressing hard. It may look like it, but I'm really not. So, and then just feather that edge. So you're just doing little like zigzags up to that line. Like so. Okay. Now I'm going to go to my pillar box red, so the middle one, and we're going to go and do the same, just a bit of a longer stroke, so zigzag again. Okay. So I'm going to go back now, and I'm going to do that same short zigzag that we did with the cool red, with the pillar box red. I'm going to apply another layer of colour, and I'm going to go back to my cool red. I'm going to deepen that shadow. So the more we make that bit pop, now when I get to this bit, I'm just going to kick out that shadow along that bottom edge of that petal. And this one here, our light's coming down this way, so we're going to get a shadow that's going to come just there. So I'm going to draw that. So if I just hold that bit closer, you can see just there you've got that bit of a shadow. So back to our middle red. We're just going to zigzag over that one too. And we're going to zigzag a bit wider. Now obviously you're going to want to go careful around any detail that you've got. And I want to do a short zigzag underneath this petal here. Because again, the light's coming from up here, so that would be in shadow. And if it starts to look too orangey, just flick back to that cool red and just cool it down. Okay. So now that we've got our shading in place, we can go over the top with our dark orange. Now, if there's a bit where you think, but the light will catch, just lighten that touch on that pencil and just let it kind of have a little bit of a natural highlight, but without going all the way to white. Because petals, unless they're wet, are not shiny. Okay, and back to that middle red. And we're going to do the same for all those petals. So now we can speed up the process a little. So this one here, I'm going to make it so that it's got a little bit of a 3D form to it. So I'm going to do cool red to just inside that petal line there. And underneath this petal here. And we can do a little bit more that comes out this bit. So this isn't about having a perfect gradient. Your petals are going to have folds and creases. So now I'm going to take my middle red underneath the entirety of that petal. And underneath this one. And then we can lightly take that colour out to the edge, like so. Over with the dark orange, and then feather that out nice and lightly. Now you're going to compare your two petals that you've already done, and you can go, actually that one's looking a little bit more red and a bit more saturated, so we're going to do the same to this petal here. And then just going to get right in there with the cool red. That's going to help pop that petal that's lying on top back out. So far so good. So this next one, that's coming this way, but we've actually got a petal that looks like it's overlying over the top, so we want to push it back. So what I'm going to do is take that cool red and go all the way over that space, and that's going to push it right back. Go to your middle red, and we're just going to do a little bit of shading on the outer edge. And back to a cool red to just strengthen that colour in there. And around that line. Like so. And if you wanted to, that's a good place to pop a little bit of purple. But now we want to concentrate next on this next petal. And go around this line here. So where it tucks down, it's not going to be as dark there as where it's going to be underneath. So you want to be a little bit lighter with your cool red up in this top section, because the light's going to be coming this way. But then when it gets to this next section, we want it to be a bit darker. So I'm just going to take that colour up from that bottom edge of the petal. And let's just feather that bottom little bit of shadow. So if you think of it like a triangle, so there's the edge of your petals, your cool red's going to come out at an angle and back. Now with the middle red we're going to do the same, so think of your triangle, but this top edge is going to extend a little bit further, and your angle is going to go from being more like that to being more like that. So if we hop over to the other side of our toadstool, we're going to pop a bit of that warm red there, and then blend that too. So because it's part of the same petal, you want to try and colour both at the same time. And to the dark orange, and we're going to go over the top, nice and lightly on this top edge. But as we start to move down, we can start to press a little heavier. And the same on this side here, a little heavier. And I'm going to go back to that middle red. I'm just going to do the outer edge of the petal because it's going to have like a curve to it. And then zigzag. And a little bit more here. Just going to pop a little bit stronger just where the shading is in the stamp there. And we've got our next petal done. So cool red again. And just concentrate on that V there. And I'm going to bring that shading just up around our toadstool. So that's going to help pop that out, especially if you want to make the top of the toadstool white as such. I mean, obviously we don't colour in white, you end up going to your blues, your greys, your beiges. We're going to go to that orange and soften that colour back. You are much better going nice and light and taking your time than trying to go at it like a bull in a china shop. Because it's much easier to add than it is to take away. So again, just going to put a V there, and this time we're going to give it little horns. So if I hold that a bit closer so you can see. So we've got our V in our petal and little horns sticking up. Then we can go to our middle red, and we're going to stretch those out. So do the V first, so you're bringing that colour up. Then on your little horns you're going to do little circles over the top. And again, nice and lightly does it. And then we're going to start to build up that colour around the petal here. So this is where your colour is going to be at its lightest. So most of that petal is going to be into your dark orange. And a little bit more, just so there's not too much white there. I'm just going to go back over this one and turn that into, and there we go. So now we've got a bit where we've got much longer length of petal. So this is where we're going to need to add an extra pencil. So you could go to a really deep purple or a strong brown. So rather than going brown at this point, because I don't want to make it too muddy, let's go for This one's amethyst, but we don't want to go really strong. We just want to keep it nice and light, and we're just going to go into that detail with some light strokes and just flick it out. I'm just going to rotate my pencil. So it's good practice to just keep rotating that pencil so that you have a nice sharp point to work with when you're doing all these detail sections. Then we're going to go to our cool red, and we're going to go over the top of what we've just done. And then we can work around these petals. Short zigzags over the top. Then to our pillar box red, we're going to do the same again, so we'll cross that line that we've just done with the purple and feather it out. And then our orange. So I'm keeping this all nice and soft, so I'm going back to my pillar box red. And you don't have to use these particular pencils, so hence I'm trying to keep the names kind of generic. But you want something where you've got a good range of colours to choose from. So ideally a 24 set or something like that, at least. So now for this next petal, I'm going to go cool red again, just to get into that section. Now if our light is now coming this way, because we've rotated our work, you're going to have a little bit of a dark section in there. So I'm just going to pop a little bit of that same purple just in that corner and go back over with the cool red to blend that in. Now if you want perfectly smooth colour, what you can do is you can actually blend using a alcohol blender pen, and you'll get it really smooth. But I quite like it without. So I'm just going to go back into my pillar box red just to deepen that colour on that bottom edge. Okay, so we've got our outer ring of petals. Now as we get more towards the centre of our flower, our saturation of our petals is actually going to get a little bit stronger. So that's something to bear in mind when you're creating your work. And I'm going to work from my innermost petal now. So I'm going to pop in the purple along this bottom edge of this front petal here. And again I'm going to do little horns. I'm going to do this petal too at the same time. To our cool red, I'm going to blend that up, like so. I'm actually going to extend that bit further on that side of the petal and on this side, so that we get the feeling that this bit here is actually sticking forward a little bit. And same here. And then a little zigzag, the cool red just right at the bottom. So we're going to do the same with our middle red. We're going to extend it further up this side. further up that side. And then a shorter zigzag in the middle. And we're going to start to curve that zigzag so we get more of a kind of a bulbous feeling to that section just there. And then we can go over with our dark orange. So again, that's going to go almost all the way to the top. All the way to the top that side. And then just blend that bottom edge there. And we're going to feel like that petal is coming forward. So there we go. Now we're going to do the inside back. So we've got all these little stamens that we can see, but if you haven't necessarily got your stamp perfect, or if there's little bits that are missing in the actual image itself, then we can use our purple pencil to just go around those stamens and just emphasize where the stems are and make those pop a little bit, because that's where your flower is going to be darkest. Now just be careful that you're not knocking out any stems for the bits behind. I'm going to pop a little bit in there so that it pushes that petal forward at the base there, and we've got a bit here that we're also going to want to do that too. So just round in there. Now at the moment that flower looks like this little bit of petal is actually over the top of this big petal, because this big petal goes around here, and what we want to do is actually push it in. So to do that we're going to go around that edge there so that we pop this bit of the petal up. So if I zoom in, you can see just there on the inside of this petal edge I've just pulled that purple up. And back to the cool red. We're going to go over the top of that bit and we're going to blend that out. So remember, these inside petals are going to be the strongest colour. Okay, and this one just round here too. So we're doing them all together, and like so. All on the same plane, so do them at once. Pillar box red and blend that out. And our deep orange, and we're going to blend that out too. So nice and light. Now if your wrist is hurting by this stage, it probably means that either you've got your work turned too much or not enough, or you're pressing too hard. So you should be able to cut off for quite some time without getting too many pains in your wrist. So if you're suffering at all, it means something is wrong in terms of your technique. So I'll just put a little bit of purple just to pop those petals down inside. Cool red, like so. Pillar box red. So each time we're extending it just a little bit more. And then we go over the whole of our shading with the dark orange to bring it up to that right tonal value, and then blend out on that top edge for where the light is hitting. Just going back to our middle red, just to get a little bit more colour in there to make those centre petals pop. So it's really weird. If you want your one petal to pop up, you're actually going to colour the petal that's behind it or underneath it, rather than trying to add more colour to the petal that you think needs to come forward. Oh, sorry to hear your shoulder is still suffering, Carol. I'm just going to add a bit more down the bottom here. So we're not doing too bad, it's just these petals here. So these are going to be the ones that kind of get more direct light as such. So this one is going to be curled so that you're kind of touching the top edge, but this one is going to kind of catch. So as I've done purple on these inside petals here, you don't want to use purple on this one, otherwise it can look like they're going to be is the same object that's just tucked back rather than being two distinct things. So I'm just going to go straight to my cool red, and I'm just going to build up the colour. And I'm going to do a little bit on the edge. So where we did that shading with our orange, I was still on that edge of that petal, and I want to put the cool red. I'm going to extend that a bit more with our middle red. I'm going to bring it out to meet that shading. We're going to deepen that colour. But leave enough room to go back with your orange and still have that kind of tone in. Now with our orange we're going to go a little bit wider than what we've coloured. So we're going out towards that edge and just blending that colour. Same on this lower edge of the petal just here. There we go. So with this one here we've got kind of a cup shape going on. So we're going to start off with our cool red midway down our petal. Then go to our middle red and go straight over the top. And then over the top of our orange. And each pass that we make with a light coloured pencil is going to leave some pigment behind. So even if you think it's not making a difference, it really is. It's just going to deepen that colour. So I'll just come back to the cool red just because I want a little bit more of that cool colour in there. And just go back to your deep orange and just make sure you've got all the area around that little turn up coloured in. So it's never going to catch bright light in here because we've got this little bit just here. And then this bit is going to be darker because we want to have that looking like it's kind of cupping round. So I'm going to go to my cool red and just go over, but I'm just going to keep this edge here, so light's coming this way, so I'm going to keep this edge lighter like so. And at this point you can see if you need to add any purple anywhere else, so just going to drop a little bit in there just to pop that front petal out a bit, and down here. Back over with a cool red to blend. And last but not least, on the last petal, so I'm just going to deepen that cool red as it goes inside there, and another bit just there. So middle red over the top of that section where we just went a little bit stronger, and then blend that back to our lighter section, and our orange all over the top. Like so. Now our lights come in this way, so this bit of our turnip is actually going to be the darkest. So let's go in there with the purple, then a cool red, and blend that out. Middle red, and blend. Now at this point you kind of need to decide which bit is darker, so if you have a photo reference you can work to, that's great, but I think just judging on that, this is going to be darker down here, so I'm just going to pop a bit more purple just to make that a little bit stronger in the shadow. And blend with a cool red. So that's nearly an hour up, and all we've done is 4 pencils. So would you like me to carry on? Are you nice and relaxed? Mom's probably fast asleep. Okay, so I'm going to turn my work upside down and tackle this flower down here. So remember how I was saying about using the red in 3 places? If we were to then do this flower in red, it's going to be a bit OTT, a bit overpowering. So what I'm going to consider is what other colours I'm going to be using. So I want to use your kind of sagey greens, your warm browns, so that we can bring those tones in. So we could almost treat this like a little bit of an alpine if you wanted to, and going for the sagey greeny foliage colours. And then what I would do is just over here we've got a load of little, if I turn it around this way, little tiny flower buds, and we could actually use our red in there so that it's not going to be too much. So bear in mind I'm thinking of cropping my image in anyway, so just because I don't want to necessarily lose what pencils I'm using, I'm just going to do these very quickly. So I'm going to go to my lightest colour this time, and I can just block in colour. So I'm playing where my highlights are, down that right hand edge, like so. Light's still coming this way. And even though I think I'm going to crop this image, I'm still going to colour all those elements, because if I suddenly decide at the end that I'm not going to do it, then it'd be a nightmare to try and match the colours back up. Relaxing was the idea, Linda, so Mum's got to learn to relax. I'm just going to deepen that colour. And I do apologise to Leslie, who is currently on Create and Craft. If you want to go and catch that live, I'll understand. And see my samples. So I'm just deepening those tones at the base using that middle red. Down that left hand edge. I'm still leaving a slightly lighter tone just there, just in case there's like a little catch light or something that you want to bring out. So I'm going to go to the cool red, and all these layers are really light, so these are much lighter than what you're colouring you've done in your OT sections. So it's still the same tones, but nice and light. I'm just going round the bases. And there we go. We've got all our reds done. So I can pop those back in there. But maybe just have them standing a little bit taller, just in case we need to bring those tones back in. So that's usually how I'll do it, so that I actually have some kind of visual clue as to what I've used before. So basically when we got to do other colours, we can bring those shades through and in. So if you think about it as like reflections, so if we were to say colour in this toadstool just here, it could be that you just get a little bit of a hint of that dark orange just in the top, even though it might be white, so that you've got like a reflection of the colour. Oh dear, Deb. So I am kind of worried that I'm taking you all away from Leslie, and there's some very nice samples that you need to see, so I will probably just show you this bit. So where you got a colour that's going to be reflecting, I'm just going to do just a hint of that colour, and on this toadstool here, because we've got this flower that's going to be directly radiating on it, I'm just going to go up the side, maybe a little bit more underneath, and a little bit just there, because you've got that petal that's going to be kind of coming up beneath it. And it's not really going to see the red from off this toadstool just up here, so we can leave that there. And there you go. So I will leave it there, and perhaps we will continue next week if I haven't already coloured it in by then. But that is literally the approach that I would take. Start off with your focal point. Then as you get over towards like this section here, you don't kind of be as fussy. So if you look closer at the colouring, you can see up here I've really gone in deep. This one's a little bit paler, and this one is paler still, so that we're kind of leading the eye through the image, and all the other colours that we would do, I would take that same approach. So your strongest colours here, slightly lighter here, and really light around these outside edges. So would you like me to do a regular colouring session? Because I quite like colouring anyway. I'll quite happily colour and... Oh dear. No, I'm going to yawn. So take care and let me know if you'd like me to do more colouring, and go and see Leslie. Bye for now.